Hi, I'm Bridget, and welcome to my kitchen. Welcome to my cottage kitchen. This is a relaxed place where there is no lawn to mow and we spend our days on the beach. But there's still lots of cooking to be done, but it's summer cooking, cottage cooking. And let's start with supper. Today I'll share two family favorite barbecue recipes that I grew up with. An effortless oven-baked ribs recipe and a homemade barbecue sauce made with beer and molasses. But first, the ribs. I grew up eating this recipe made with beef short ribs, but today we're making it with pork baby back ribs, but any ribs will do. Now, before we get things going with the marinade, we have to remove the membrane on the bony side of your ribs. So you can just use a kitchen knife, like a butter knife, a table knife, to loosen the membrane just along the bone, and then we'll be able to pull it right off. And removing this membrane, it's just so tough, as you can see. It doesn't soften really in cooking, so it's something you just want to remove before we actually get this in the marinade. See how easily it peeled right off? Now that the membrane is removed, I'm going to put these ribs in a roasting pan, or if you have a Dutch oven, you could use a Dutch oven. Just needs to be something that has a lid, because when we get these cooking, the first hour of cooking, they are going to be covered. So we'll just fit them right in this roasting pan. Now that the ribs are prepped in the roasting pan, I am going to slice an onion and a lemon to put on top. Now the lemon, if you can look for a lemon that has a thin skin, because we're going to be cooking this lemon with the ribs, skin and all. And also, before you start to slice it, you'll want to give it a really good scrub, just to remove any surface residue. And then we're just going to pop out any of the big seeds so they don't add bitterness. This is a great lemon because it has hardly any seeds. We'll set that aside, and then I'm going to slice, or chop really, an onion. This doesn't need to be diced in any fancy way. Just roughly chopped will be fine. There we go. I chop my onions on an onion board, so my regular cutting boards don't end up making other things taste like onion. All right, I'm just going to scatter on top of the ribs, scatter the onions on top of the ribs. Then I am going to dress the ribs with the lemon slices. I'm just laying them on top of the ribs. These lemon slices end up almost caramelizing as they cook with the ribs. So when we serve the ribs, we'll actually serve the lemon slices too, because they're delicious. All right, with prep now, with the onion and the lemon, next we're going to make a bit of a marinade that we'll pour over top before we put these in the oven. To make the marinade that the ribs are going to cook in, we are going to combine half a cup of brown sugar with half a cup of molasses, and this is fancy molasses. And then to that, we are going to add 3 tablespoons of prepared mustard. This is hot mustard. If you don't have prepared mustard, you can use the mustard powder, and you would use 2 tablespoons of mustard powder. And then we're going to add 1/3 of a cup of chili sauce. This is the tomato-based chili sauce, but my mom has used a hot Asian chili sauce with great success in this recipe. So depending on your tolerance for heat, you could use a different kind of chili sauce. Then 3/4 of a cup of orange juice, and 1/8 or 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper, again, depending on your tolerance for heat. and then about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We'll whisk those together until it's a fairly smooth sauce. And this is going to be a sauce we'll pour half of it over the ribs before we put them in the oven, but we'll save the other half to baste the ribs as they're cooking. So it makes a very richly flavored sauce, and cooking the ribs in the sauce keeps them very moist. All right, so that is nice and smooth, well combined. So let's get the sauce on the ribs so we can put them in the oven. Give it one more stir. And remember, it's only half of the sauce that I'm pouring over top of the ribs, and we'll save the rest to use as a basting sauce. I'll put the lid on. And these will cook for an hour at 350. And halfway through, I'll take them out and baste them with a little bit of this extra sauce. And then at the 1 hour mark, I'll baste them again, but then I'll leave the lid off and they'll cook for another 45 minutes to an hour, just until they're nice and tender. But while the ribs are in the oven, I'm going to show you how to make the barbecue sauce. I've been eating this barbecue sauce since I was little. It's a recipe that my Uncle George gave to my mom. So in our house, it's George's barbecue sauce. I'm going to mince half an onion. You could also grate the onion if you want it really tiny. And then I'm going to add it to a little pot along with the other ingredients, and we'll just let it cook for 15 to 20 minutes, and that's it. The sauce will be done. So the minced onions go in the pot first. Into that, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of Dijon mustard. And 1/2 cup of chili sauce. Again, it's the tomato-based chili sauce. And 1/2 cup of fancy molasses. Molasses and barbecue are the perfect pair. Now this is Worcestershire sauce, and just a teaspoon. And finally, a generous pinch of salt. About 1/2 teaspoon of ground pepper. And finally, 1/2 cup of your favorite beer. I find the beers that work the best are those that aren't bitter. And it's always wonderful to be able to make this recipe with one of your favorite local beers or a craft beer. And it's only 1/2 cup of beer. So then, while you're waiting for the sauce to cook, you can finish your beer. All right, so we'll just bring that to a simmer over medium heat. And once it's been bubbling away for about 15 minutes, then we'll just remove it from the heat. You can use this sauce right away if you'd like, or you can put it in a jar and it will last in the fridge for easily a couple of weeks. The ribs have been in for about 30 minutes, so I'm going to take them out and baste them with a little bit of the leftover sauce. And already they smell great with all those onions and that flavorful sauce. There we go. I've used about 1/3 of the remaining sauce to baste them. And remember, there are lots of pan sauces as well, so we can start to spoon those over. And just make sure that everything gets a good coating. These are sticking to the edge of the pan a little bit, so I'm just going to loosen them. There we go. This was a really big slab of ribs. All right, so we'll cover them again, and they'll go back in for another 30 minutes. Our ribs have been in the oven for an hour, so I'm going to take them out and baste them again. And then for the remainder of the cooking time, I'm going to leave the lid off so they'll start to brown nicely. And I'm going to baste them a few times through this final 45 minutes or hour of cooking. So I'm still going to reserve some of the basting sauce, but there's so much pan sauce here that I'm also going to baste with that and give everything a good coating. There we go. And the lemons are softening really nicely now. There we go. All right. So now they go back into the oven for another 45 minutes to an hour. You could finish these ribs on the barbecue if you wanted to when they're pretty much done. So I would say after at least another 45 minutes, you could lift them out of the pan, shake off the excess liquid, and grill them over medium for maybe 3 to 4 minutes per side. And again, still basting them with the remaining basting sauce. But for simplicity's sake, I prefer to finish them in the oven. Our beer barbecue sauce cooked for about 20 minutes, and then it thickened a lot as it cooled, so it has a beautiful consistency and a deliciously tangy flavor with just the right amount of sweet. This can be stored in the fridge for up to 2 weeks, or you could use it right away. Now onto the ribs. I let these ribs cook for the full 2 hours, and they're very tender and a little bit sticky. So I'm going to cut them into individual ribs so they're easier to eat. Oh, and they're so moist. This was 3 pounds of ribs, and I think they're a great appetizer for a crowd. So putting them out like this makes them easy for people to eat. And remember, I said you really should eat the caramelized lemon. So I'm going to pick those slices out as well. And there are enough slices to go around. I know a few barbecue experts who are happy to spend a day preparing their favorite recipe for ribs. I, on the other hand, lack the patience and the barbecue skill. So that's why I love this recipe. It's effortless, takes little time to put together, and always tastes great. I hope our family's favorite barbecue recipes become your favorites too. Thanks for watching.